All right, being 5:30, I'm going to call to order the meeting of the Fitchburg Board of Public Works for March 15th, 2021. First order, call to order, and public appearances for non-agenda items. We do not have any. We have one, Jay Hockmuth registered for an agenda item, number 5B and 5C. So that moves us to next, approval of minutes from the March 1st, 2021 meeting. Do I have a motion to approve these minutes?
I so move we approve March 1, 2021 meeting.
Moved by Wilborn, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Granetsky. Discussion. Don't have any changes? I see a lot of heads nodding no. All right, and I don't either, so we'll call the vote. All in favor of approving the minutes from the March 1st, 2021 Board of Public Works meeting, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, agenda item number 4, a report from the department head, Mr. Bill Balke.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Looks like it's still snowing outside, which is not a great thing, but to be expected in Wisconsin. So we're out there going to be salting the roads tonight and making sure they're not too slippery for everyone to get home. And just one of those things that we got to get through. We thought we were on to spring, but not quite. The orange barrel season is up again on Fish Hatchery Road, and as well as Highway 14. They're going to be starting construction out there on Highway 14 within the next week, I think next week, where they're going to be closing off Burn Road to replace the bridge that goes over Burn Road on Highway 14. So we'll be seeing about a 3 to 4 month detour on that while the road is closed off at the bridge. Fish Hatchery Road, the barrels are up there, and traffic is going to be shut down to one lane in each direction during the day, during the peak hours, or the off-peak hours, so that they can do the work in the medians, install the temporary traffic signals, and after about 2 weeks of that, they're going to be moving into the reconstruction of the northbound lanes, so all the traffic will be switched to the southbound lanes. So that's going to be starting up second week in April, and from there we'll be into construction of Fish Hatchery Road for the rest of the year. Traffic signals are being installed up there for the next couple of weeks. The one at Greenway Cross was just installed over Thursday night last week, and then they're going to be moving down the road to each of the signalized intersections, installing those. Andrew, I don't know if you've got any other updates, or if I covered it. We're good. Okay. We're going to do the capital improvement planning for the next 10-year CIP. So we're busy getting those reports ready for review by the mayor and the council. If there's any projects that have been on the back burner or something that Public Works is interested in pursuing, let me know about those so that I can try to get those into the budget and get those programmed in there. So if you got any ideas for capital projects that you've heard from the community or thought would be good as part of one of our long-range plans to bring up and get implemented, let me know about that. And we've got about a month left to get those into finance. And yeah, we're busy with trying to get plans out the door for the resurfacing project and water main project and all of these other projects we got going on in design. Sain Road, Lacey Road, and the roundabout or traffic signal improvements at Seminole and Lacey. So pretty busy with things as usual, but we're ready to go.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you. Questions for Bill from the board? None. I have a couple, Bill. Are we all right on our salt? We have enough to make it through, assuming we don't have 10 more storms in the rest of the year?
Yes, we have plenty of salt. We actually have an excess because we don't put it down as heavy as you need. Well, we put it down as heavy as you need to, but yep. We do conserve on salt, and we should have enough for this year and maybe even cut back on next year's supply.
Do you have a sense of when your resurfacing, chip seal, those contracts will be bid or let out?
I got a project update meeting with our staff later this week, and I'll find out for sure, but last I had heard would be within the next couple of weeks to get the chip seal and crack filling out, along with the striping, lane pavement marking that goes along with that. And then we'll be moving into the resurfacing projects.
Thank you, Bill. Excuse me a second, I have to turn this off. All right, any other questions for Bill?
Yeah, this is something that, kind of mentioning the chip sealing, Andrew, since you're on the phone, I know we're kind of getting into our busy season over the next couple months or so, but if we can put on the radar just an overview of kind of our chip sealing strategy, again, just making sure chip sealing is what we want to be doing, why we want to be doing it, and making sure that the program is funded well enough, or if there's other things that maybe we could or should be doing with that funding, or is more funding needed to kind of keep up with the chip sealing program that we have in place. Again, nothing overly urgent, just something to kind of get on the radar. I'd love to see that, make myself a little bit more knowledgeable on what the city is doing and kind of the city's plan for that.
Yeah, we could definitely do that.
Yeah.
That
Hey.
follow-up meeting, either TTC or Board of Public Works, whatever you guys want.
Thank you.
Bill or Andrew, maybe, we have new board members and things, maybe at some point here after the election, you could give us a 5-minute overview on our maintenance strategies, our pavement management system, the different techniques. It's always good to review those every few years, let people know what we're doing. So you can put that on your radar. I know the pile is pretty tall already. I don't know how much more your backs can stand, but I'll make the request anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. All right, thank you, Bill and Andrew. Next, we're going to move to agenda item number 5, review items. And number 1, 5A, is the draft annual MS4 report. Let me just scroll down. And this, I guess I just venture to say, this is a big deal for us. A very big deal. And so, draft annual MS4 report, submittal of annual reports and other compliance documents for municipal separate stormwater sewer systems, our permit. And so, let me ask you before you guys jump into it, staff has completed that. You're looking for comments from the board, and then you'll finalize this and submit it. Is that the process you have in mind, Bill?
Correct. We put through a summary of the requirements that we've been required to meet this year, and we're just looking for feedback. We're looking, as part of one of the components is public outreach, so we're looking for feedback on the report from the public, our board members, and anybody else who might want to comment on this.
All right. So do you want to say any more on the report here before I ask the board if they have questions for you?
Yeah, I don't know if the board wants me to go through in any level of detail with regard to any of the programs that we have, or if there's any questions that they might have for the program.
Generally speaking, how does this compare with previous years that we've done this? Anything that stood out in your opinion?
It's a lot to manage. I mean, you go through and you look at how many stormwater ponds we have to manage, how many miles of road, how many miles of storm sewer, and all the different programs that we're required to meet and still continue to do the outreach, the public participation, look for problems in our systems and address those. It's growing as our community grows. So one of the things, I guess, to look for those benchmarks as to when we're going to need to look at more staffing or different equipment, or how can we sustain the programs that we have for the stormwater.
It's in good hands. My only question was around the salt. I know we were just kind of chatting about it this just a few minutes ago, but do we have a salt reduction plan in place? Are we good with where we're at? Are we seeing a bigger shift over to a brine mix? And the reason why I ask that is every year when the salt comes up on the budget, we always approve it to kind of max out the storage shed and whatever we used, we just replace that with the previous year, and kind of helps keep costs down. But if there's something where we should be looking at, kind of getting away from that as a board and moving more towards that brine / mix, whatever is there, if you can kind of maybe speak to that a little bit.
Sure. Yeah, we've been using brine to pre-wet our salt, so it pretty much, that'll activate it before it gets down to the ground as opposed to dry salt. And so we've been using that for a number of years, mixing that in with beet juice. And so it's a biodegradable product that's sustainable for the environment. We, by doing that alone, it lowers our salt amount by 20% usually, or 10 to 20%. And then we really don't have the specialized equipment. We made our own equipment to do the pre-wet, or not the pre-wet, the anti-icing, where you go out and you see the tracks of white lines on the road where they spray the roads before it snows. And what that does is, it'll activate with that first flush of snow that comes through and delay the plowing and salting by a little bit. And sometimes it takes care of the snow altogether, and you don't have to go out there and scrape the roads. But so we've been doing that. We also calibrate our salters every year to make sure that we're not over applying salt. So, and we really, our staff has had some training on how much to apply based upon the road conditions, the pavement temperature, the dew points. There's a big formula as to what we use to minimize the salt that's being put down. So we do, a really good job of managing the salt, and if anything, keeping that reserve there, we just have to buy less the following year. But as we keep adding more and more roads, that's eventually we're gonna have to increase it, but we haven't increased that total for a number of years.
Questions for Bill or comments on the report?
I only have one question for you, Bill. You said it's not standard to have sump cleaning done, but you'd put 55 inlets along Lacey Road. Whereabouts did you have those installed, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, all the inlets along Lacey Road, that's in the new construction between City Hall and Sain Road.
Okay.
They all have the sumps in them, so there's 55 of those that we have to maintain.
Thank you.
Bill, do you, I'm concerned about our stormwater utility, as our residents have indicated to me, the water quality and the environment is a very dear issue. I see a report like this. The record keeping, we have a large stormwater utility. Is the record keeping and submittal, is this 5% of the stormwater utility budget, 10%? Are we getting to the point where it's still manageable? At some point, are you gonna need more staff? This has been identified as citizens as something, they're willing to invest more money in, I guess is what I'm saying. No one will really come out and say that, but if you look at how they vote and how the comments, they want clean water and a good environment, and this is probably our best way to help deliver that. Are we staffed adequately, I guess?
Every year we take a look at what the program needs and what we can deliver. We're at a point now where we prioritize based on the amount of time we have to do different things. When it gets too far out of alignment with what the permit is requiring, then we do put in for either, like for instance, this year, last year's budget for this year, we put in for another street sweeper and another person to help, maintain the street sweeping program that we have, that we had fallen too far out of compliance with that. So as we identify the needs based upon the growing community, we do look at the staffing requirements and permit requirements that are needed.
One thing this is a comment on here, we have many residents, like myself, that one time lived in Madison, and many of them will complain to me, well, how come we have to bag our leaves? Why can't we just leave them and on this, like Madison? And I tell them, the way we do it keeps more leaves out of the streets and out of the waterways compared to the city of Madison. It is more work. I realize that, and if you have a lot of trees, it's a hell of a lot of work. But I feel the way we do it does the best job of keeping that phosphorus out of the system.
Definitely. I think Fitchburg is the model that the state would love to go to if they had the chance. But once you start to go down the path of picking up the leaves at the street, it's hard to go back the other direction.
Yeah.
So everybody would love to get, the leaves off the street in the manner that we do. Anytime you can keep those out of the curb and gutter and in bags is ideal for keeping the phosphorus out of the streams and water bodies.
All right, any other questions for Bill on the grant? Bill, when do you have to submit this? Is it you're trying to submit it this week?
I think it's March 15th, might be today or the 31st.
Okay.
It's the 31st, it's
Okay.
the end of the month.
So I asked the board if you have time. I've read it once. I'll probably go through it again. If you have any more comments, get back to Bill or Claudia. Timely here. And thank you for putting this together. This is a heck of a lot of work. I wish we didn't have to, but it's one of the things, we have to do. So appreciate
Bill, I
it.
have one quick question. You installed sumps in all the inlets along Lacey Road. Is that working out well? Is the city intend to do that in the future, or is that not a program you're going to continue, or where do you stand on that?
It's pretty labor intensive to be able to get to all of them in 1 year. And hopefully, with the additional staff that we've hired on with the stormwater maintenance person, that we'll be able to have a chance to get out there more often to get those sumps cleaned out. But we're kind of monitoring it all as well to see how often we have to clean them out. It might be every year. Some areas might be every other year, depending on how many trees and how much sediment gets into those. So it's a new program. We're monitoring it, and we'll have to make adjustments going forward. But I don't think, from a maintenance standpoint, we don't want to keep doing this and adding to the amount of work that we have to do.
It's sort of what it seemed like, that the amount of maintenance work maybe offsets the minor amount of benefits that you might get from it.
I think that's very astute, Kim. I would agree. Would agree. All right, then we'll close. Anything else? Again, get back to Bill on this. So then we're going to move to review item number 5, Bravo, 5B, Lacey Road presentation for review and discussion only. Bill, are you leading this, or Andrew, are you going to lead it?
I would just, Dave, before we get started,
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, Kim. Go ahead.
I want to let everybody know that I am going to recuse myself from any discussion on both 5B and 5C. So I'll put my mute on and.
Very good. Thank you, Kim. Thank you. Okay.
That's good. Yeah, I can take it.
Okay.
But Bill, I think will jump in. I know he briefed you guys a couple weeks ago, so feel free. We'll kind of tag team this one, but I'll share my screen. I mean, I kind of did this for TTC last Thursday. This is kind of a quick run through both the Lacey project PIM and the Sain Road PIM, if I can just take those kind of jointly. So we'll do Lacey first and then Sain Road. So just kind of run through the project. So as Bill mentioned, there's kind of 3 projects. The Promega kind of frontage, kind of in this section. So because of that, kind of the economies of scale, so they're kind of managing the design of this roadway project that goes from roughly 300 feet east of Fitchburg Road to roughly 300 feet west of the Badger State Trail. We did not include Fitchburg Road because of kind of complicated right-of-way it takes that might come depending upon what that intersection looks like. And then there's an adjacent roadway project, the intersection project limits here at Seminole Highway and Lacey Road, either roundabout or a signal is what kind of we're looking at there. So, okay. So we gave this back on the 17th, and we kind of walked through kind of the limits, the goals, the project, and overview, and then provide a public survey for folks. But I'll just kind of get into kind of the cross section and the actual project design. So we kind of have 2 cross sections here, one with and one without. So depending on where you're at in the corridor, you have medians or you don't. And the medians really offer a couple benefits. They offer pedestrian refuge islands where there's crossings. They offer some channelization, some slower speeds. They also offer channelization for future development that we're not allowing left turns into and out of different properties along Lacey Road, and that can cut down some of the conflicts and make it safer. And then it also has a benefit of kind of making up some of those grades, so you don't have to have the roadway kind of continuous like you would in this section, so you can actually have a grade break here and kind of keep some of that grade differential in the median. So, but yeah, so you can see here kind of the various cross-sectional elements. So we're looking west, so you have the bike path on the north side here. We have street trees and a terrace, medians, buffered bike lanes on both sides. So the buffer is just got kind of painted markings, 2-foot buffer in between the travel lane and the associated bike lane, and then a 5-foot sidewalk on the south side. So roughly speaking, this is kind of what we're looking at. So just kind of running through the corridor. So as I mentioned, Fitchburg Road is not included in this project. That'll be a 2024 project. And then we see our first medians here at Rock Ridge for pedestrian refuge islands. No control stopping Lacey, but we will have a side street stop for Rock Ridge as is current. So you can kind of see the buffered bike lanes, the medians here, some driveway access changes. A realignment here. The quarry access is a little bit farther east currently, and we'll be realigning it with the quarry access on the north side. And then through kind of this section, there's a lot of existing trees and a big hill, and so we're kind of cutting that grade differential, and that's why you see some of these grading limits that really reach far out, just to be able to cut into that hill. We're looking at higher slopes to potentially reduce some of this grading, and I know it was brought up potentially building a wall here. That could be an option, but that is quite cost prohibitive, so we want to hold off from that if at all possible. And as I mentioned, the median does kind of offer some grade break there, so it's not really adding to that grading. So then moving down, I'll just kind of continue going east. And I'll note that that's the first big chunk of trees as we move east that we really want to get assessed to understand what kind of trees those are, how old they are, how many they are. We'll be kind of taking that information and some smaller group meetings forward to kind of understand what sort of, what design changes we can make that would offer, the biggest benefit to some of those old growth trees. So I'm happy to talk more about that. So at Commerce Park Drive, so that's not connected now. We need to change the grade. And really this is a big impetus of this project is kind of cutting down this hill and making these horizontal and vertical curves safer. And then at that point, we'll be able to connect Commerce Park Drive. We do have auxiliary left and right turn lanes here, so we won't be stopping through traffic on Lacey. We also have the median refuge island for pedestrians. And then as we get further out, you can see one of the stormwater treatment facilities. So we're installing curb and gutter with this project with associated stormwater facilities. So before it gets to this kind of depression up here, we would be treating it to remove, suspended solids. And then kind of moving further east, we have two kind of proposed left turn lanes into development south of Lacey Road. Those are still to be determined where those will actually go and how that would look, but that's kind of what's shown on the plans now. And then we stop now right before Badger State Trail. As I mentioned, we'll have another project that kind of comes along, improves this trail crossing and changes this control, and then merges this kind of roadway cross section with the cross section shown here. So with that, I think I covered the highlights. Do you have any questions? And I guess before, real fast, so next steps, just to kind of let you guys know where we're going next, would be, as I mentioned, we're kind of meeting with smaller groups. We heard a lot of kind of concern about different cross-sectional elements. Maybe it's too wide. What does that come at expense of? So we asked our consultant to kind of break down the individual itemized costs of all these cross-sectional elements. There are certainly some complicating factors. For example, if we install a median, we need that 20-foot clear on each side for fire apparatus to be able to set up their trucks. So there's kind of complicating factors like that. So we wanted to break some of these trade-offs down in a smaller group meeting. So, we're soliciting folks on the corridor. We kind of have a small group between 4 and 8 that will workshop some more of this through with residents and property owners along the corridor, just to kind of understand kind of what the trade-offs are, get some feedback from them, and then bring that back to you guys in about a month. So that's kind of the plan. And as I mentioned, we're certainly collecting more information, certainly about the trees and some of the elements. So with that, I want to open up for questions.
Thank you, Andrew. We'll do this one, and then we'll do, then we'll have you, we'll take questions, hear from the board, and then we'll go through the same process on Sain Road.
Sounds good.
So first I'll open up, we have Jay Hockmuth on the phone here that I believe have some questions. So I think first maybe I will open it up to Jay and then board members. Are you there, Jay?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, guten Abend, wie geht es Ihnen?
Okay.
All right.
I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight with everybody, and I also really appreciate the opportunity what Andrew and Bill and city staff are doing to try to answer questions that we posed as a result of the February 17th informational meeting. And there's a lot of work here independent of those questions, and there's more work as a result of them, but we really believe that this is an ideal project to solve some longstanding problems. There's safety issues on this road, no question about it. Our interest is trying to minimize the environmental footprint and save some money in the process. And so that was the genesis of the questions we posed here. There have been several installments of those because as we've learned more about the project, we've added additional questions, and we really appreciate Andrew keeping track of this and working with others to try to get answers. The answers, the initial round of answers was provided last Wednesday, and we're studying those right now and trying to understand it completely, and we'll then probably provide some additional commentary on those at the appropriate time. Don't really have anything else to mention tonight. I don't think, I don't have any questions per se right now, but we just wanted to make sure that the members of the board were aware of this public interest in the project. And I was going to send Andrew an email when I heard about this, but I'll say right now, if there's room on this group that's studying this, I'll be more than happy to be involved. So appreciate, again, this opportunity to offer these general remarks and look forward to working on this to get us to the point where we have a project to do next year.
Thank you for that offer, Jay. For the board members and those watching, the list from Jay and concerned citizens, I believe it was 46 questions, Jay,
Yeah, I think that might have been
Yeah.
it. But there were actually 5 people that worked on those questions. I'll be the first to admit I was heavily involved in the first draft, but this is a group effort by people in 3 different nearby subdivisions.
This is the most detailed list I've seen on any project in my 28 years on the board, so I really appreciate people's interest. Okay, well, I'm going to open it up to the board now for questions, questions for Andrew and Bill. I'll hold my comments till the end here, so whoever would like to go first.
I'll
jump in.
go first.
Okay, Michael.
I made a couple of comments at TTC last week, but just kind of wanted to get a couple of different ideas out there. I live out in Quarry Vista, along this corridor, and have been working obviously on the Board of Public Works, kind of understand that there's future growth areas. I see families, kind of either hop their kids on the bus to get to school, take the kids to school up and down Lacey Road, see the traffic, see the apartment folks that are living there, the homeowners that live out there. A lot of use gets on that path that's along Lacey Road, so I think that's an excellent resource. With the way that this corridor is laid out, kind of currently and what I've seen from future growth, it really looks like this is gonna, this corridor, this area is gonna kind of connect those two growth areas along Fitchburg Road, kind of have a little bit of a break because of the quarry, and then kind of dive into a little bit of, kind of that industrial zone where Pro Mega and Sub-Zero are, and then get more into, the city limits where you've got the, the school and a couple other businesses out there. So I think that this corridor would be fantastic. With that said, there's a couple design elements that I question. One is the on-street bike lane. I think if we had a great path that would be really adequate for the connectivity for kids that are either getting to or coming from the school area, kind of coming back into the neighborhood. A lot of people, hop on the trail and can get to wherever they want to go in Madison from kind of the other side that's not in this project. So kind of getting back into Fitchburg would be fantastic as well. But again, the on-street facilities for the biking seem a little bit maybe I don't want to say unwarranted, but it's just one of those things. I don't necessarily know that we would need those, especially with the buffer that goes along with that. So that would be kind of one of my big concerns on this. The other thing is that as we look for future growth on what would be the south side, I think there's a sidewalk planned for that right now. Would love to see something like that be designed in, yet see if there's an opportunity to put the curb and gutter in on both sides, and then hold off on the actual sidewalk development until we get closer to that time where there is a community out there that would need that sidewalk on that side. Because right now you'd be putting a sidewalk over there and there's literally nothing, at least kind of further on down towards Fitchburg, there would be really no use for that. And it might kind of get to be one of those things that's great. It's great that's there for future usage. If we're going to connect the neighborhoods later on, fantastic. But for right now, that might be one of those things. If we could grade it and maybe not install it, there might be a little bit of a cost savings there. Other than that, I mean, I agree. The road condition isn't the best. Understand curb and gutter really would kind of help with that long term. Would love to see that. I'm not a fan of the medians personally. I have no basis for that other than, if they add traffic calming value, that's fantastic. But if we're talking about just kind of putting it up to break up gray, the counterpoint that I would have to that is that's a lot more maintenance that would need to happen. City gets out there and if it's not kept well, it gets pretty unsightly pretty quickly. And with the walking path right along the street, again, and we get a lot of traffic maybe from Fitchburg residents coming out and kind of getting to Target, going down to Verona, where else they're ever going to, or maybe kind of even coming into Fitchburg. That may actually look a little bit more unsightly than maybe kind of, Andrew, what you had mentioned before about kind of breaking up some of the gray. There's a lot of trees, a lot of good stuff going on out there that would maybe help hide some of that, especially if the bike lanes weren't there with that buffer that goes along with it. So I'll shut up now.
Thank you, Michael.
that's-
Oh, very,
that's
very
great.
good
Thanks, Mike.
comments.
Real quick, I'm sorry, I might mumbled on that one, but I was saying break up the grade on that the two. Did you say gray?
I thought you said gray, so if it was all just kind of
no,
monotone.
that too. But yeah, that's a great
Yeah.
point. Yeah, no, I guess what I meant was just that in
Agreed.
either case, yeah, either if they're either, if the median's here or if that space is dedicated, out here, we're breaking up the grade either. Oh, you guys can't see that?
Yep.
There you go. Either if we're breaking up the grade here or out here, either one of those works. But it's that, these two can basically be on kind of different planes then, whereas we wouldn't have that option there. But, and you're right. I mean, there's definitely, if you get a median large enough, you can put trees in it. In this case, we're not proposing that. So, yeah, there are other benefits where we're putting them versus like, for example, the pedestrian refuge islands at the crossings, but
And
we can definitely reevaluate how long some of these are. And that's
in the I think the pedestrian refuge are great. It's just what are they, looking at the connectivity and what's there and
Yep.
what's planned for. I'm questioning what's going to be what we're trying to connect. If there's future development kind of down by Fitchburg Road, if the sidewalk is on one side and the bike path is on the other, I definitely see a need for that, kind of up at the up by Rock Ridge, getting down to Commerce Pike or Commerce Park. I'm not quite sure if that's one of those things where it could be planned for, or if it's just easier just to do it right now and get it done with. And if we have pedestrians there, great. If we don't have pedestrians there, great. As a fraction of the cost to do it now versus do it at a later date. That'd be good to know as well.
Yeah. And as I mentioned, we're starting to itemize those costs. We're going to include that in the meeting summary. I haven't quite got all of those figured out yet, but we'll be getting those in there shortly. And then I did just want to mention, right now, roughly three miles of Lacey from Syene to Seminole has on-street bike facilities. And, our 2017 bike and ped plan for this type of roadway, 35, less than 10,000 ADT, 2-lane. We typically look for either parking protected bike lane, which we haven't really gotten into yet as a city, or a buffered bike lane. And so that's kind of the basis of this initial project. And there was that existing great, shared use path. So we want to extend that. Once we get past that 10,000, so we're looking at roughly 8,000 ADT in our design year, then our bike ped plan would recommend having both. And so we're kind of on the bubble there, and really the buffer's there for that kind of higher speed traffic, so that folks still feel comfortable being adjacent to that. But yeah, it's all things that we definitely want to work through. If we don't need both, then we can certainly talk through what that looks like, and how that plays with the any medians that do remain, and kind of keeping that clear zone.
Thank you, Andrew. Sarah, would you like to go next?
Sure. I only had one question, and I apologize because I know there are several references to the TID and financial requirements for this project. And I guess I still am uncertain. My assumption is that if we don't include both the bike path and the multi-use path, we do lose funding from the county. But am I understanding that correctly, or can you clarify as to kind of from a funding perspective, if we have any requirements that we would need to follow?
Yeah, and so there's kind of two different elements to that. There's TID money and there's T grant money, which is from the state. And so that's, there were some of these elements that were specifically mentioned in the T grant that we would have to talk with the state about if those elements were removed. It wouldn't necessarily mean that we wouldn't, still get that money, but it certainly would be a discussion with them, a renegotiation. On the TID side, we can't they have to be improvements. what those improvements are. I mean, that could be the shared use path, that could be sidewalk, that could be median, that could be buffer bike lanes. It doesn't have to be all of them necessarily, but we can't just reconstruct the roadway and use TID money for that. Bill, did I get that right? Does that sound?
And real quick, was there a difference in does the TID cover the whole corridor? Was it part of the corridor and then the other half would be picked up by the city? However, we can figure that out.
I believe the TID covers the whole well, the TID plus a half mile covers the whole corridor.
Okay.
I believe so. That I think that all this project cost is eligible for that, but
I don't think so.
Bill, again, correct me if I'm wrong on that.
I don't think the TID goes past the boundary of the Payne and Dolan, or the
I don't think it does either.
Commerce Park. I could be wrong.
I could be wrong, but I don't think it
The,
goes
the
back.
actual TID line is the boundary with Payne and Dolan and Hammersley. Do you have that map from the first slide, Andrew?
Oh, sure. There you go.
So essentially where the quarry entrance is, there is where the
Okay.
TID boundary is. So everything from there up to Seminole Highway, is included in the TID boundary.
Okay.
And then we're able to use that TID boundary plus a half mile. Is that correct?
Right.
For-
So the half mile outside of the TID is eligible to be used for project costs as well, although not at 100%. We're saying that the improvements that we're making to the road do have some benefit to areas outside of the TID, and how much of that was based upon how much traffic is going to be generated going to that TID area. So what we had estimated was around 15 to 25% of the new traffic generated based on the new construction in the TID would benefit those areas outside of the TID. So we did assign, a portion of the cost of the construction based on those improvements.
Sarah, does that answer your questions? Somewhat?
It does. I guess, I'm sorry. So I'm looking at a bullet within a con of question number 7. And I guess I apologize for restating this again, but it just calls out that TID and TIA funding would not be applicable for the roadway reconstruction. Is it that it would just, a renegotiation would have to occur, so it potentially would still be applicable, but there would just need to be another conversation? Is that fair?
I think so. What we're saying is that the new development within the TID or the T grant area is going to need some improvements to the infrastructure. And we need to improve roadways, we need to improve access to the site based upon the new development within those areas. So if we were just to say, we're just going to resurface the roadway as is and walk away from it, that's correct. The TID and the T grant are based upon improvements that are needed to support the new development. Otherwise, without the new development, we wouldn't need those improvements. So that's the basis of that bullet point.
That helps. Thank you. That's the only question I have.
Bill, I'm going to jump in here for a sec while we're on the TID. So the top part there, the Payne and Dolan, that they're still quarrying for the next 10 years, there won't be any development in that area for increased property value that, would be repaying the tax, that would be the taxes that would be going to pay for the improvements we made. Am I looking at that right? I'm not a financial guy, but they got another 10 years on that area, to quarry. And I don't think anything will, there's not gonna be any development that would generate any higher taxes. It would stay at its taxable base, that we have right now until they close the quarry and develop it. Am I correct? Again, I'm not a TID resource by any means.
Right. So the TID life of the TID, the district for the taxation district, there is 20 to 25 years. So even if it doesn't occur in 10 years, if development were to occur, in the 10 to 20-year range, it would still be eligible for receiving those costs and benefiting the area.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Wilborn?
Well, I pretty much agree with everything Mike said. And also, are we not going to line up Hammersley's driveway with the pit when this is done, so there isn't two areas close to each other, big construction vehicles coming out of? Am I,
Yep.
got that right?
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. You're talking about these two
Hammersley's
axes.
construction and the pit.
Yeah.
We're gonna line them two up, so when there's trucks coming in and out, it's all gonna be in one area as you come over. But I don't really believe we need extra bike lanes out on the road either. I just think we put a big enough bike ped path, put a stripe down the middle of it, and it'll be well used for pedestrians as well as bicyclists. And that way they're keeping them off the road. So there's less chance of some kid getting hurt out there because he's gonna ride his bike out on the street. I just don't think we need it. It's a waste of money.
Yeah,
Anything else,
that's a good
Dave?
point. Yeah, that's definitely, I think that's a lot of what folks are saying. I think, the at least seemingly duplicative.
And I also think
bicycle
eventually the
service.
O'Brien farm is supposed to be, well, I think what do you wanna call it, gonna come out and put their soccer fields out there, am I not? And that's why you need that, probably those couple turns there going, but I don't see that being developed other than that aspect of it for housing or anything like that, where we're gonna have a great deal of traffic coming out of there every day. Am I right or wrong?
Yeah, I believe currently this is looking like athletic fields, although nothing's been finalized at this point.
Dwayne?
Okay, I'll try to be brief here. The board we're listening to, I have quite a big list of emails I've received from people. The board ourselves, our main concern, number one, I feel, is safety. Second is long-term viability of the road, and then the third, limit our economic cost to our taxpayers on this. One thing that, I hear driving this is the other end of Lacey Road has bike lanes. I would tell you, in my 28 years on the board, there's a few things I regret, but not fighting harder to keep the bike lanes off Lacey Road from Fish Hatchery to Syene, I just felt it was a monumental waste of money. Mr. Wilborn next to me lives on there. The few bicyclists that we see, I ride it maybe 6 times a year. It's usually on a weekend. I certainly could be on the path. And I just felt we were sold a bill of goods, that we had to have that. And I'd like to remove that from our design, and I realize the T grant from the state, but I think we could make a case for, we're trying to be environmental stewardship, limit our footprint here, and I think we could make a good case for that. I'm with Michael that I believe on the south side, it would be prudent to grade it or have it prepped for a sidewalk that future development would pay for, not the TID right now. And a couple other things. I believe we need to put curb and gutter on it. Nice if we didn't, but the road holds up better. Bill, am I correct there? Ever since I've been on the board, I'm not a civil engineer, but it seems every engineer that's worked for the city has told me that, and I've worked with all of them since I've been here, that the curb and gutter makes the road hold up better because you're not getting cracking from the side. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. The meridian in the middle, I'd like to do without it, but I'm somewhat open on that. I'd like to maintain as many trees as we can. And we have a group of concerned citizens that wants to work with the city on this design. It's very encouraging to me. I'm not interested in trying to tell the city, how to do the intricacies of the design. That's why we have good professionals like Bill and Andrew and the firm hired to design it. But I want the input from the public. I think this bodes well for the city, having so many people interested in this project right now. And I think we need to at a minimum, get the bike lanes off there. I ride bike as much as anyone, and I could ride on the road, without the bike lane, or I could go on the path, but I think it's a lot of money for bang for the buck. It's very small. So that's all I had. Let's move on to 5C, Andrew, on the Sain Road.
Sure. And just a quick note, so we will have, as I mentioned, we will have some cost estimates from some of these elemental, some of these cross-section elements. So you'll be able to kind of weigh that of what is the relative cost to kind of the overall project. So something to look forward to. So a similar kind of reconstruction project, but this is on the east side, and this is much earlier on in the process, I'll say. So we gave this a few weeks ago, this presentation with the consultant. So, we're talking about basically from kind of McCoy Road, including this intersection control with the trail crossing, though not including reconstructing or moving the trail crossing because there is wetlands up there. Several intersection control options along the corridor, and then all the way down through Aurora Avenue. And then, so we will, be looking at a traffic signal at Lacey and Sain, mainly to do with the very close railroad improvements there, and a desire from the railroad and potentially the commissioner to look at, integrating a signal with railroad preemption there. Looking at, potentially some signal or roundabout at East Sherrill, mini roundabout potentially at Nine Bark, as well as, existing options with the side street stop. And then potentially some medianization. So so we started this 2019 study, and, this primarily was a planning level study that looked at, what the general traffic was going to be, what the roadway, kind of high level, how many lanes does the road need. And so this is kind of like a cross section they settled on, but we started digging in a little bit deeper. Again, this is kind of the beginning of the project, but we're still kind of trying to understand what cross section elements do folks want. And so you can kind of see here, we broke the corridor down into 3 main cross-sectional areas that we felt like could fit for it. So the first one is this cross-section, section A, in the more rural sections, or kind of a little bit further away from development. So kind of this section, we would potentially forego the median and the sidewalk on the east side, just as it narrows into the railroad right of way. And potentially do the same thing for the north. Again, there's not really any connections adjacent to the wetlands, and there's an existing bike path on the west side, or multi-use path on the west side. So we thought we would forego the medianization and the width and the sidewalk there. And then in cross-section B, kind of the most of the rest of the half of the corridor, we would have kind of a variable median, 10 to 16 feet. We'd have the bike path on the west side. You can see here, we'd have on-street bike lanes and a sidewalk on the east side. And the sidewalk is primarily built, except for a couple residences on the corridor. So in this kind of cross-section B, most of that stays the same. We're talking about median and buffered bike lanes, really, as an addition. And then cross-section C is kind of the trickiest spot where we have the tightest right-of-way. There, we proposed three alternatives during the meeting, and I unfortunately didn't know enough at the time to kind of definitively say we wouldn't be, buying up right of way at the historic property. And so now I can at least a little bit more confidently say we have none of our cross sections have any right of way takes at the historic property. If you're familiar with that, that's the McCoy House. We'll be meeting with the residents later this week talking through some options, what their concerns are, and then we'll be meeting with some of the folks from Upland across the street here later to kind of talk about what their concerns are. And so here's one of the options. I'm sorry, this is A. So here are the three options in that kind of tight section block of the corridor with housing fronting Cyene on one side and the historic property on the other. So we have all these options have some form of parking, but I want to note that this doesn't have to be the whole length of the block. We have existing utilities we need to keep there. We had in the developer agreement there were trees for each house. So depending upon what people want there, we really can be a little bit more flexible, have a compromise. So it wouldn't necessarily be one monolithic cross section for this whole block, but so we're going to be working through this a little bit more with those residents, and then also something similar to what we're doing with West Lacey, kind of broadening that and having some representation from all the neighborhoods in kind of a larger group to talk about some of the other elements along the corridor. We're talking about control. We're talking about control these intersections, their signal, roundabout. We're also talking about lighting options, so potentially lighting the whole corridor versus just the intersections versus maybe a compromise in between those. And so, this is, like I said, this is much sooner on in the process than Lacey. And so we're kind of getting these design teams going, these kind of advisory groups to workshop through a little bit more of these options. And with that, and so you can also see, definitely some sanitary sewer, water main in select locations, and curb and gutter and stormwater improvements. That's kind of the real impetus of this project. So with that, I want to open it up for questions.
Yeah, I'd like to start with Jay Hockmuth again. Let him weigh in, and then we'll maybe go through the board members in the same order again. Thank you, Andrew. Jay?
Thank you, Chairperson Herbst. At this point, with respect to Cyene Road, we have submitted some questions, and I know you're working on them, and I think we'll just await the reply to those questions. I mean, we realize there's some commonality between both these projects, but there's also some significant differences. And so we'll be sensitive to that, and we just want to, work through the process and come up with something that the nearby neighbors are supportive of, but also not have something that could be a negative precedent with regard to unique features for Lacey Road. That's when you get into these kind of things, and you got two projects that are somewhat similar, but there's differences. As long as everybody understands that we have to be flexible and recognize that, one size doesn't fit all. I think that's what we're hoping will be the outcomes.
Thank you, Jay. Anything else? All right. Michael, you're on deck.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest difference, like Jay was kind of talking about, that stands out to me is that there's housing that actually is right on Cyene Road. You kind of take a look at Lacey Road and that project. That neighborhood is fairly well secluded from the actual street itself. When you get on Fitchburg, that one is actually maybe more comparable to Cyene, but that one's out of scope for today's conversation. I do like the fact that there is potential parking that is right by the houses. I think with just kind of the economy, the way it may be going, deliveries, drop-offs, all of that is going to be very, very important both now and into the future. So I like that aspect of it. Once again, I love the connectivity aspect of the neighborhood. I love the opportunity for getting more people, not using automobiles to get from point A to point B, but I start to kind of once again question the on-street bike paths, especially when you look at that housing corridor. It looks like you've got the parking lot, little buffer, bike lane, little buffer, street, median, street, and then kind of the bike lane with the buffer on the other side. Again, I think everyone's careful. I think everyone's responsible. Accidents do happen. And I think that it's on the board here to start to kind of question and make sure that we've got as much information as possible when designing these things, because the better you design it, hopefully the less accidents that happen. But I'd hate to see, my initial thought process just by looking at that is somebody's going to be darting in, dropping something off, darting out, and there's a bike lane on the left where usually there isn't a bike lane on the left, and that kind of head scratches a lot of things. Whereas if this facility, if the goal, kind of looking at it, if there's that multi-use path, which would be on the west side, kind of direct traffic there, make improvements, whatever we would need to do there. There's already a great facility for bike and ped, and I'd love to see that, either more used or more encouraged.
Thank you, Michael. Anything else? All right. Sarah? Can I-
Yeah, I guess my only comment was also about the parking, and just that I see it differently, where I don't necessarily see the need to have the parking, and that I did attend the meeting and hear the resident feedback of just the concern of, it did seem as though, I understand that that's a smart code neighborhood and that it was built so that those residents, the homes were going to be closer to the road, and that parking wasn't part of that initial plan. And so deliveries and things like that would potentially be dropped off in the back. And so that cross section C that includes the parking does stand out to me as just being different and not as cohesive as the rest of the road. That's one section that I actually don't care for, that I think that seems just a little strange that there would be one section that part, and I know that there's a proposal for it further down as well, but just for that small cross section C, for there to be a carved out area for parking seems a little odd to me, that I don't know if we would potentially encourage delivery drivers to drop off on the other side. And I apologize, I don't know of a solution there, but that is the one section that I actually found to be a little bit eye-catching, just that it wasn't as cohesive as the rest of the roadway to offer that within that one area. And so that was the one question that I had on this project. And I know, like you'd already mentioned, that you're receiving resident feedback, so I'll be curious to see kind of how that progresses and if there are any alternatives available. And that's all I have.
Thank you.
Dave?
I have a question. Are you talking a roundabout at East Sherrill where it hits Sign, or are you talking lights? Because they got that one, it's gonna be tough to put a decent roundabout there with that one apartment building sticking right out on turn out into the road now. Have
Yeah,
you tried
we're talking both, I guess, or either. As the case
I
may be.
just think it's gonna be a mess trying to put a roundabout in there and get it so it's central with the road.
Yeah,
Without just about going right up in the front road, entryway of
Right.
that apartment building.
It is tight, and so you can kind of see it here. It's a preliminary layout. The consultants kind of took this one a little bit farther, knowing that the quick trip is going in this corner, so they kind of worked on this a little bit faster ahead of the other intersections. But yeah, so we have both proposed, and I would say, just looking at the comments so far, it's basically a 50-50 split. And we solicited survey for both of these projects, not to get a vote because it's not very representative, but to get some of those pros and cons. So our consultants kind of putting that together. I bolded some of the things I felt like were important, but a lot of folks mentioned, is a roundabout going to be tricky with quick trip being there and bike ped traffic? But then other folks mentioned that they didn't want, the lights, or that they didn't want people, the actual light, the illumination of the roadway, or they didn't want queuing associated with the traffic signal. So I think we're gonna, when we come back to you guys later on with some of these control features, we're gonna be kind of running through that pro-con list, developed both by our engineers and by residents, based upon their lived experience of the quarter and knowledge of that. So yeah, it's a great point. I'm not sure which one would work best. Both signal and roundabout we have laid out here, and they both fit, so we'll see.
Anything else, Dave?
Hopefully that helps.
I'll try to be short again. I have received several emails, one from, I'll just say her first name, Elizabeth, that lives South Saline Road, and she wanted to see traffic lights, at those intersections north of Lacey and Saline. She felt there a lot of people are avoiding roundabouts just because they don't feel comfortable in them, and her preference was for having lights up there. So I wanted to get her viewpoint. And I'm not providing her name or her phone number. I do have it, and so I would be glad to give it to the city, but I don't want it put in the public record right now. Again, my same view on the bike paths. We have a bike pedestrian trail. I think that's the place to be. I think bikers can still ride on the road. I grew up starting at 9 years old. I lived 3 miles out in the country, and my parents said, you want to play Little League, you got to ride your bike. So I was on a state highway with logging trucks, and so I think these bikers, they're pretty street savvy, and I think they could ride on the road, with traffic without a separate lane. They seem to, like I say, they're pretty savvy, and if they didn't like it, they could come over on the trail. I did have a question regarding the stormwater. So on both streets, if we put curb and gutter, we'd have to have stormwater basins, which costs money. But the question I had for Bill, does that provide, having the stormwater basin, are we getting maybe minimal impact on the environment? And my thinking is, you got roads, we're salting and they got dirt on them. If we have a shoulder, it kind of gets washed into the ditch and kind of meanders its way. And if we have a storm sewer and ponds, we're able to contain and maybe treat that more adequately. Am I anywhere in the ballpark, or am I talking crazy again?
You're on target with that. There's two cross sections that you can consider a rural cross section like you have out there now, but it would need to meet the rural collector standards. So there would be some widening involved. There would be shoulders involved, but you do have the ditch, and that takes up a lot of room. And what the urban cross section with curb and gutter does is it narrows that pavement width, it narrows the ditch part of it, so that you don't have to have the wider ditches and impacts to property along there. And what we do is we put those in pipes and we send it to a pond or an infiltration area to be filtered and cleaned up before it enters the waterways. So it's essentially taking the ditches, the cleaning that you get from ditches, and putting it into a centralized location such as a pond and cleaning it up in one place, versus a parallel lateral or longitudinal cleaning of the stormwater with the ditches.
Okay, thank you.
Are we gonna have to put some type of grinder or lift station in that area to get it across?
You shouldn't need one, no.
Okay, I'm just curious there, because that one spot's pretty low.
At the north end, where the Capital City Trail crosses you turn the corner, and I'm not sure what the road that goes straight there, what is that road?
That's saying.
That is
Saying, but south.
That's in the summer, I'm probably across that 2 or 3 times a week. And that's a pretty safe intersection. You have pretty good sight lines both ways, and if you stop, it's not very wide. I don't know if I don't think we should spend any money trying to make anything improve there, and I don't think there is in the plan. So the question I have, next steps here, and I think what people want to know is, do they still have input? And they still have a say in the design, and I think that's what I'm hearing from Andrew and Bill is absolutely. What's the next step here, Andrew? I guess we've had this meeting tonight. Bill, you mentioned possibly in April you'd like to have cross-sectional areas approved, so the design could move forward. What happens between now and then?
Yeah, so certainly, I mean, Lacey's further along in the process, but I mean, we're proposing doing the same thing with both, having these smaller group meetings, working through some of these constraints, and then kind of based on that feedback, meeting with you again to talk about what we heard, some of the questions we responded to from other residents, and we'll certainly be posting this stuff on the website. But we've seen the questions come back. We'll be doing the same thing for Sain. So that, I guess, with kind of smaller working group, you'll see kind of the results from that. And then certainly from residents who want to come to the next Board of Public Works and Transportation and Transit Commission meetings, that'll be, I guess, where the next kind of public forum will be for these projects as we try to move forward and kind of move the design along.
I anticipate you'll continue to get questions, Andrew, so just be prepared, and we appreciate your diligence and all the city staff. We know it's been a team effort to get these questions answered, and everyone has remained cool and collected in something that could, people could get pretty excited pretty quickly, and I'm really happy the professionalism everyone has maintained here as we go through the process. All right, well, I'm going to close Dave Wilborn?
Sorry. On that, whereabouts is that quick trip gonna go? Are they buying up some old buildings there across and tearing them down, or where's it gonna go?
Yeah, I'll share my screen one more time. So kind of this, so it's turned, but the southeast corner here of Lacey, of East Sherrill and Sain, and they'll be going kind of this whole stretch from the railroad to South Sain. That's not the exact limits, but yeah, that whole stretch of East Sherrill there.
Okay, so they're tearing down some existing buildings to build a quick trip,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Okay, thanks. I just didn't know for sure where it was going.
I didn't either.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, well, Bill and Andrew, thank you very much. I appreciate your time. And Jay, thank you for all your efforts here. Jay has put in an incredible amount of time along with the other core team of residents, providing feedback to the board and to the city, and we certainly thank them for their efforts. We're gonna move on to agenda item 6 here now. Resolution R 59-21, purchase of 2021 Ford F-150 truck. Do I have a motion to approve this resolution?
I'll move to approve.
Moved by Lobdell, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Schroeder. I would note that this is probably the one truck in Fitchburg that is older than mine that I drive. I have a 2005 truck, and my children continue to make jokes about me being so old school that I have things that are older than they are. The truck isn't, but this is we're replacing a 1999 truck, Bill, or 2000 truck. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Is there any salvage value on the one we're replacing?
Did we have a motion on the?
Yeah.
Okay, we did.
Oh,
Right.
yeah, we have a motion, yes.
Yeah, there's a small salvage amount. I think it was $1,500. We were hoping to get maybe 500.
Okay.
Not much, but we're hoping to get this sold before we have to replace a transmission or re-overhaul an engine or something like that. It's out there a number of years, so it's seen its good days and its bad. So we're hoping to get it replaced with a new one.
Sounds
Well,
like Dave's in the market for an upgrade.
Well, anyone in the city looking for a good used vehicle,
But he was,
let Bill know. Let Bill know.
how good was he saying?
Well, the price you're paying for the new one is really reasonable. Truck prices right now are really high. We were looking to buy a new survey truck, and holy cow, I thought if I could get in on that state bid, I'd love it.
Yeah, that is a good deal, Kim. You are correct. Yeah, you are correct. This has been in the capital improvement plan for anyone watching. It's part of our responsibility to make sure we have serviceable equipment for our utility here. So I don't have any concerns about this. Anyone else? Otherwise, I'll call the vote. Okay. All in favor of resolution R 59-21 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Announcement, next Board of Public Works meeting, April 6th, 2021. Does anyone know they won't be here or can't make it?
I've been trying to get in for surgery, and
Okay.
I keep getting pushed off, but if I do get in, I probably won't be here.
Okay. This will be,
That's an if right now.
all right, thank you, Dave. We'll play that by ear. That will be Sarah's last meeting on the board as her term as Alder expires on that meeting.
You said April 5th, right? Not, I thought
April,
you said-
April 5th, yeah, Monday, April
Okay.
5th, yep.
Okay.
Yep. All right, then let's move to agenda item 8. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Before we make a movement, I want to thank Sarah for her
Yes.
joining us and putting up with us
Yes, sir.
a couple times a month.
You got one more with me.
one more.
But thank you. It's
You
very
got
kind.
one more shot at her, Michael.
You guys have been very calm or patient as this is new terminology to me, and I appreciate your patience.
You're a
Just
quick
make sure
study.
you bring-
You're a very quick study, Sarah. Thank you. Thank you.
Make sure you bring a treat to pass.
All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
Moved by Wilburn. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Granetsky. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.